Hey everyone, I'm Ashleigh Banfield and this is Drop Dead Serious, another special episode for you. This time because we've just gotten our hands on a file from investigators in the Bryan Kohberger murders that really give you a look inside Bryan Kohberger's mind, because it shows what he was Googling in the days and weeks after the murders. And my NewsNation team on my Banfield show, shout out NewsNation, 10 o'clock Eastern, make sure you watch it. We were able to find these files. And then Lindsay Holler, my podcast producer, and I have been digging in deep to some of these files. And we want to show you tile for tile what Bryan Kohberger was Googling. Linz, let's start with the American Psycho tile. And you can see Christian Bale's in one of the best roles he's ever been in, honest to God. Some kind of an item that he was looking at with American Psycho. We'd heard he was pretty fascinated. The next one is Ed Kemper, body language. You know Ed Kemper. He's considered the co-ed killer. He killed, 10 victims, including his grandparents and his mother. This was all in California. The next one is Cleaning Time. Interesting. A Night to Remember. Some of Good Morning America's coverage, obviously, of what happened at 1122 King Road. You can see the crime tape there. Killer Laughing. And there's a picture of the 4 victims. That's so heartbreaking. This next one, Details of the Idaho Murder Mystery Don't Add Up. This is Clay and Buck. He was Googling that as well. I think he liked to listen to his handiwork. Ed's Messy Beginnings. That's Ed Kemper again, the serial killer. This next one, Tradecraft. And of course, look who that is. Ted Bundy, one of his favorites. Next, Christian Bale's again, an American Psycho. He seemed fixated. The Killer Speaks, an A&E original. And then again, mugshots of Ted Bundy. And if you go over to the right here, it's that thumbnail that we know he was looking at leading up to the picture he took of himself wearing the black hoodie, looking so evil, and degenerate. I think he might have been trying to imitate this thumbnail because he had just watched it prior. All right, let's go back to the YouTube file. Idaho Murders, Case Going Cold, ABC News, and a story about Bundy. Again, American Psycho. Then a picture of the knife and sheath, and I know this is a picture that we use on NewsNation. I don't know if he got it from us or if he got it just from anywhere, but next, yet again, Christian Bale's as American Psycho. Then Nothing Was Out of the Ordinary. And again, this is a story about 1122 King Road and the murders. Again, the knife and sheath. Again, Good Morning America and its Moscow police. Then a picture of Ted Bundy with It Was Fun. It's a file he clicked on. Then a bloody face of Christian Bale's in American Psycho. He clicked on that. And he watched that. There's Ed Kemper again, body language. That's our friend Scott Rouse. So he's watching. He's watching Scott's work. Okay, again, American Psycho, Christian Bale's covered in blood, and then The Perfect Killing Machine, Ted Bundy serial killer, Unsolved and More. Then Ted's Last Confession and Feelings in the End. Then, oh man, this is so creepy. He watched Analyzing Evil, Alex DeLarge, and if you saw A Clockwork Orange, you know how violent and indiscriminate and evil some of the scenes were in that movie. So clearly, Bryan Kohberger knew what to watch. Homicide Investigation Update. That, I'm not sure that's the Moscow Police Department. There you go. It is the crime that he's responsible for. And again, American Psycho. And then John Wayne Gacy. How about that? Not a lot on John Wayne Gacy. Maybe he wasn't handsome enough for Bryan Kohberger, but certainly had a body count. Ted Bundy's most famous victim, Ed the Co-Ed Killer. And here's a file he watched again, The Perfect Killing Machine, Ted Bundy serial killer. And then Christian Bale's again, Bloody from American Psycho, and then Neon Blade again, an image from American Psycho. Then an ABC News special, again, this looks like a second watch, on Ted Bundy. Then Crime Stories with Nancy Grace. I'll bet she was covering his crime. And then I'm not sure who this is. but it's someone in a military uniform with what looks like a sword. Hard to tell who that is. In the comments, if you know, definitely say. And then top 10 facts about Jeffrey Dahmer. And then, I deserve to be executed. Absolute crime. I wonder if he ever thought he'd be caught and would face the death penalty. And then there's something he watched on Ted Kaczynski called 8 Serial Killers with the Highest IQs. I wonder if he figured he'd be considered the 9th. The Golden State Killer. Found, by the way, with the same process that led to Bryan Kohberger. Genetic genealogy. Then this creepy Ted Bundy file that he watched with the hood. Maybe he was trying to mimic it in the pictures he took on December 29th. And then we have BTK Confession, Q&A. And that is Catherine Ramsland. That's really fascinating. That's his professor. Ted's messy end in Florida. Killer caught on video. And this is Jennifer Koffendorfer. He was watching a file she did on the white Elantra. This next one looks like just some random crime file he watched. Police line do not cross. Next up, Ted Bundy, the 70s teen killer. He also watched Mark of a Killer. That looks like Ed Kemper. BTK, Confessions of a Serial Killer again. Another picture of Ted Bundy in his nice little winter sweater. BTK, Confessions of a Serial Killer again. This next one is, was Ted Bundy actually special? And that's Dr. Grande, who does forensic psychology specials on YouTube. So he was watching more on that. And another one on Ted Bundy. And another one, The Obsession with Ted Bundy. And yet again, American Psycho, Christian Bale's. And there it is again, another American Psycho tile. And then Ted Bundy with the title saying The Start. And then Ted, It's Not Me. So there you go. That's the kind of content that was filling Bryan Kohberger's mind after he had slaughtered 4 innocent kids. He liked seeing the coverage of himself, and he liked getting into other people's filth and agony. He seemed to really enjoy watching other serial killers and learning more about their work. Maybe he was planning more. I wouldn't doubt it. I don't think that's a one-off. I don't think you kill 4 people like that and then never do it again. Thank God he was caught. Okay, there's something else you should know about Kohberger's habits. He also Googled serial killer timelines. And let me tell you a little bit about what we found. You could pick all these serial killers. There's like dozens and dozens of them all listed out, but he chose just a few. And these are the ones that he clicked on. He clicked on BTK. He clicked on the timeline of Ed Kemper. He chose to click on Joseph Kallinger, Cleophas Prince, someone I've never heard of, Lee Boyd Malveaux. This was interesting. I covered this story. I was live in Washington. These 2 guys were, executing people as they stopped on the freeways for gas, and they were snipers. They were called the DC Snipers, and it took 23 days to catch them. And, the nation's capital and the surrounding area, they were paralyzed with fear. This was such a weird story. I covered Lee Boyd Malveaux and his mentor, John Allen Muhammad. Lee Boyd Malveaux was 17 back in 2002 when he and this adult that he decided to follow started killing people all around the Beltway in Washington, D.C. area. They were snipers. They would fire at people filling up with gas, people who were waiting for a bus, people who were stopped on the side of the road. And for 23 days back in 2002, the whole place was terrified. Who was doing these killings? And it was the weirdest arrest. They arrest this guy and his 17-year-old protege, and they both were convicted, but it was really crazy. Just interesting that Bryan Kohberger would only click on Lee Boyd Malveaux, the young one, not the older one. He also clicked on Pee Wee Gaskin. That's someone else I don't know. But then he clicked on serial killer stats. And what's super interesting when it comes to the serial killer statistics, there's this 20-page document. But if you go to page 10 on the document, for starters, there's something saying a problem with the typical profile. As can be seen in this table, the commonly cited profile of a serial killer in the U.S. being a white male in his mid to late 20s is not accurate. It shows the statistics, but Bryan Kohberger You're a white male and you killed at age 28. So you're at least, it's not a problem with your profile here. But the next page was fascinating. He talked about the broad motives, and it gives a list of motives for serial killers. It said the first one is enjoyment, thrill, lust, and power. And in the United States, 31.76% of all serial killers were in that category. It went down from there, but the other, motives are financial gain, anger, multiple motives, gang activity, criminal enterprise, to avoid arrest, cult, convenience, hallucinations, or attention. So these were the kinds of musings that Bryan Kohberger was doing on his computer, while the rest of you were probably enjoying your holiday gifts. I guess it all falls into line, right? This is his fascination. This is what he seems to love. And that was his behavior leading up to his arrest. I'm so glad they were able to get this, because it's at least a small peek into his head. Like if you know somebody and you're a little unsure about somebody, and then you maybe get on their computer and you see that this is their browsing history, this is what they watch, maybe do a double take. Maybe ask a few more questions. Maybe get a bodyguard. Maybe ghost them and move. I don't know. It's really disturbing stuff, though. But again, I'm fascinated in what makes this guy tick. And since he's not talking to us, not yet anyway, and I don't know if he'll ever be able to, there's rumors that he's going to sign some deal with some big network and the big payout will go to his family. And I'm not against that, by the way. I just want to be on record. I think his family has been victimized as well. And their lives have been ruined. I don't even think they can say their last name anymore. And so if there's something he can do for them because he's ruined them so badly, maybe give an interview, for God's sake, you loser, and help at least your family. Sure would be nice if some of the pay would go to the families of the kids you killed. That would be a nice way to divide up some money too. But I'm telling you, it's just helpful. Until he maybe does talk, it's just helpful for us to learn a little bit more about what makes these monsters tick. Hey, thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching. And just remember, truth isn't serious. It's drop dead serious.